the way to hurt Putin properly is through increased economic sanctions to stop him making the money that he's doing by exporting his oil and gas products using this shadow fleet we keep hearing about.
Now, well, let's kick off with the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. He's been joining leaders of France, Germany, Poland and Ukraine for a meeting in Kyiv today to discuss how to pressure Vladimir Putin to agree a 30-day ceasefire. President Trump has also changed his tune somewhat on Russia, so threatening further sanctions if President Putin doesn't agree to a ceasefire. Now, for its part, Russia is demanding a halt to all European arms transfers to Ukraine. But what about decoy tanks and Air Force defence systems? The British military is planning to send Ukrainian forces more IKEA-style flat-pack decoys to trick the Russian military into hitting fake targets. Well, I'm joined now to unpack all of this by Philip Ingram, former British military intelligence officer. Philip, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Good afternoon, Alexis.
Philip, let me just get your thoughts on this post that we've had from Donald Trump in the last few minutes. It reads this: after a long night of talks mediated by the United States, I'm pleased to announce that India and Pakistan have agreed a full and immediate ceasefire. Congratulations to both countries on using common sense and great intelligence. Thank you for your attention to this matter. What are your thoughts on Donald Trump's post there?
I think that's good news. I was slightly concerned that we'd heard nothing from Donald Trump or from Keir Starmer about the India-Pakistan conflict that's going on, and was hoping that they'd be working behind closed doors, and clearly they are. India-Pakistan, their conflicts flare up fairly often, especially in the disputed Kashmiri region, and then they tend to just fizzle away. There was de-escalatory talk coming out of both sides after the attacks on Tuesday, where India attacked targets inside Pakistan. But then last night it seemed to flare up again. So this is good news.
Let's move back to Ukraine, and we are going to, of course, keep you updated with the latest from India and Pakistan. We're going to be speaking to Moeed Yusuf later on in the show. This is a former national security advisor of Pakistan. We're going to be bringing you that interview after 3 p.m, so stay tuned to more reaction from the latest of India and Pakistan. But back to Ukraine, Philip. We are seeing this sort of so-called coalition of the willing, some joining via video call, but others are there in person. Friedrich Merz, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, and many more attending Kyiv meetings. They are looking to get a 30-day ceasefire starting on Monday. Do you think they've got any chance of achieving that? Because the Russians don't seem to want to play ball so far.
I don't think so. I hope I'm wrong. But Vladimir Putin had proposed a 3-day ceasefire over his May Day parades and this weekend. Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, had said, no, I'm not doing ceasefire for a parade. Let's have something more permanent. And he had proposed 30 days, to which Putin's team had turned that down. And it seems as if leaders from the coalition of the willing, and of course this is Friedrich Merz's first visit, as he's just been sworn in as Chancellor in Germany, but to try and, it's their first time to try and get the momentum behind this 30 days, bring Donald Trump on side and put Putin on the back foot.
Russia, in return, is asking, should they even consider this 30-day ceasefire, that all supplying of military arms needs to stop. They are saying that Ukraine is going to use that 30-day ceasefire to reinforce their frontline soldiers and equipment. Is that usual, to demand the cease of all military personnel moving around during a ceasefire?
Well, from the Russians, of course, it's usual. The Russians don't want the Ukrainians to have or get any advantage from it whatsoever, whilst they get as much advantage as they possibly could, because the Russians will go and try and reinforce their own front lines and rotate their troops through and get new equipment up to the front line and develop new plans for if there was a ceasefire for when they break it. And that is inevitable. Russia will always put demands on demands on demands, because they're not really serious about wanting peace. And this is why I don't think we're going to get something that is going to work from Monday. But you never know.
With Donald Trump castigating Vladimir Putin last week, I think it was, after the Pope's funeral, we have not heard more from the US. They're busy doing quite a lot more. But do you think that the US are the only people who can bring Putin to the table? Do you think that this coalition of the willing, led by Volodymyr Zelensky and Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, have they got the power to bring Russia to the table?
The coalition of willing has more than got the power to bring Russia to the table, but it helps to have America on side as well, because if America isn't on side, isn't going in the same direction as the rest of the coalition of the willing, then it will just take longer and longer and longer to try and get to some form of peace. Russia, just look at it economically. Russia's got a GDP of about $2 trillion. Europe collectively has got a GDP of 100 times that. America has got more again, and this is where real pressure can be put on. But the way to hurt Putin properly is through increased economic sanctions to stop him making the money that he's doing by exporting his oil and gas products using this shadow fleet we keep hearing about.
Are you confident that those economic sanctions will work, Philip? Plenty of people always get in touch with the show when we talk about them, saying, well, hang on a minute. If there is still more space to manoeuvre with those sanctions, to put more pressure, why has this not been done already? Because the war is costing lives on a daily basis. And it seems like we are hearing more. We heard it again from von der Leyen times that, we're going to put even more financial sanctions on Russia. Why is that not being done? Why isn't everything being done to put so much pressure on Russia that they'll have no choice but to abandon the war?
Well, the why is something that I think a number of different leaders around the world need to navel gaze and ask themselves, because Europe is still buying oil products that have originated in Russia. And you've got other countries around the world that are not anti-Putin in the same way that we are in the West. You've got India buying huge quantities of oil. China is getting access to cheap oil, as are a number of other countries. And you just need to look at the world leaders that joined Vladimir Putin in Moscow yesterday for his Victory in Europe parade. And that shows you a number who are still buying Russian products. The way to stop it is in two ways. One, what the Ukrainians are doing by destroying Russia's ability to store and process its oil. They're attacking the refineries. And two, to actually then ramp up the sanctions that are out there at the moment, and not just say we're not going to buy it directly, but it's to attack the shadow fleet and then bring further sanctions in against countries that are buying it themselves. And this is where you can put pressure on them. The Chinese would back down very quickly if they thought that the West was going to start sanctioning them in different ways, because the Chinese don't want Western sanctions to affect their economy. The same with India.
Philip, thank you for giving us your time. Always good to speak. Philip Ingram there, former British military intelligence officer.